Our next talk is by Gauranga, who received a BE in mechanical engineering from the University of Pune and has been serving as resident brahmachari at Sri Sri Radha Gopinath Mandir, Mumbai for the past 20 years. He is currently affiliated with the Bhaktivedanta Research Center, BI and TOVP Philosophical Vision and Concept Team. Really looking forward to this talk. He's been doing a lot of really diligent and rigorous research. So Prem Gauranga, if you want to start sharing your screen.
Yes, Prabhu. Am I audible? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you turn your volume up a little bit?
Oh, this is the best I have.
Okay. Can everybody hear him? We're gonna turn the volume up on the screen here, but you can proceed.
Okay. Firstly, I would like to be grateful, acknowledge my gratitude to the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies for giving this opportunity to present on the topic that I'm taking today is space-time correlation and cosmology of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So, okay. Yeah. Just a minute. So we'll be starting with the methodology and theological perspective, just to give a summary of what's coming up. Okay, it doesn't seem to work. Okay, so determining the reference latitude by using two methodologies. Both of these methods don't require that we should have an input for the value of a yojana. Third is require a definite value for units of time. That's the problem area. So we have two methodologies which will actually decide what is the reference latitude at which all these measurements are being told. But we need a definite value for the time unit, even if you don't have a definite value for the yojana. And the unit that we are measuring, talking about here is the ghatika, which Prabhupada translates in two different ways. At one point he says 30 minutes, and at one point he says 24 minutes. So that's the area of concern or contention. So the research is based on both Shabda and Pratyaksh Pramans. The inference for the different values of ghatika used and its application are drawn, from which we can infer the value of a yojana and then discuss on the further research areas. So the first thing is we'll be just talking about the three pramanas, Pratyaksha, Anuman, and Shabda. I'll be just highlighting the important points here because it's a long presentation. And I really want to focus on the technical aspects because many of the people have covered the theological aspects. Since all other pramanas start from perfection extended, they depend on its validity. One who insists on always distrusting the evidence of the senses will have no basis for participating in philosophy or, for that matter, in any meaningful aspect of life. This is from Jiva Goswami's Pramana Khanda. So according to Srila Jiva Goswami, how a perfect devotees who have the perception of the Lord, his abode, and his associates through spiritual trance all have pure senses and have transcended the four defects. For such person, Pratyaksh is a reliable source of knowledge because their sense perception is completely pure. A devotee acquires perfect knowledge through his purified intelligence and transcendental senses, buddhi graham, ati indriyam veti. This experience of pure Vaishnavas is called Vaidushya Prataksha, and it is flawless. This is from his Praman Khand of Tattva Sandarbha. So Pratyaksh should be supported by Shabd, not contradicted, except in cases where Shabd imposes itself on Pratyaksha. We have already discussed these aspects. And this is what Prabhupada is expressing his concern when we are actually trying to build this model, that how we have to really be truthful to the Srimad-Bhagavatam. This is an interesting quote regarding cosmology and astronomy. It's from the Bhagavata Purana, where it says, "Dear intellectuals, the eye, the scriptures, the water, the pictures, diagrams, and mathematics. These 5 are the means of knowing anything about the celestial system." This is from Bhaskaracharya's Siddhanta Shiromani, the Vasan Bhashya commentary. But the scriptures have been mutilated by copyists and students over a period of time. There are many also. What shall we rely upon then? So he says, so we should rely upon which conforms with mathematics. Mathematics in this case becomes the underpinning language that builds the bridge between scripture and scientific method, as it is also between observation and scientific method. Essentially, the proposed model agrees with the empirical observations to a great deal of accuracy, but differs in the logical inference, that is Anuman, with the modern day scientist on the strength of Shabda. So I will not be dealing with these slides in detail, but the point is that the complete presentation, the complete model that I am actually presenting, which I'll not be doing in today, but I'm just taking an aspect of it, is based on Srimad-Bhagavatam, specifically on the translations of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Though I have used about 14 commentaries of the Acharyas with original translations made for about 5 chapters, to specifically highlight some points that Prabhupada makes, or just does not highlight. But honestly speaking, 5% calculations just come from what Prabhupada is presenting. So this is the case that Jiva Goswami is saying how Srimad-Bhagavatam is the emperor of all Pramanas, and any other Praman just is basically a follower of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And he makes very beautiful and very strong points about it. So this is the list of Sanskrit commentaries that I've been using. 14 of them. There are 13 known commentaries in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, known commentaries, which are quite famous, quite popular. Out of which I've been using 14 for the 5 chapters that have been enlisted below. That is chapters 2.2, 3.11, 5.21, 2.2, and 2.3. Specifically pertaining to time and space. That is chapter number 11, 3rd canto, and the cosmology. That's the 5th canto. So we have to also appreciate the fact that the Srimad-Bhagavatam is actually addressing the general populace, the populace of Kali Yuga. So keeping this in mind, we should also know that Kali Yuga basically exists only on this earth. So it makes sense if the reference point is on this earth. Otherwise, it makes no sense to give so many figures that Srila Shukdev Goswami has given if they cannot be verified. Also, the Sut Goswami and the sages present, even during Shukdev Goswami's time, if one may say out of sensitivity, no one asked Shukdev Goswami. But even during Sut Goswami's time, most of the sages, you don't see anyone ask a question about the figures. So most of them, though they are from different varying philosophical backgrounds, they seem to agree on the figures. Now, the interesting point is that Priyavat Maharaj following the orbit of the sun is one of the really striking points, because it inherently applies that he exactly knew the path of the sun traced around Mount Meru. Though Vishwanath Charit Thakur says that because of his going around Mount Meru, the islands created were mutually inaccessible to the senses. So now these islands cannot be accessed. And this was an interesting point, which actually, propelled me to think about what about the empirical observations that we can actually perceive from our senses. What about that? Do the figures actually relate to them in some way? So first we have to understand that Shukdev Goswami has been very expert in using the horizontal, equatorial, ecliptical, and the celestial systems, as the Bhumandala planes, as the reference, and he actually shifts between them quite seamlessly. It's not an uncommon thing, even for abstract things. Shukdev Goswami actually does that. If you see in the 11th canto, at one point he glorifies the different qualities that a person should possess, and then a few chapters later he says, okay, he should rise above them. So in the first time when he's glorifying the qualities, he's taking the reference frame as the frame of goodness. And when he's saying one should rise above it, then he shifts his reference frame to the frame of pure goodness. So even for abstract things, he has been doing that quite often. So coming to the movements of the sun, that is the 21st chapter of the 5th canto. The most intriguing aspect is at what reference plane have these velocities and these distances being enumerated. And the first verse, I'll be taking the most simplest. Actually, there are two ways you can do it, and both come at the same conclusion. So I don't think it's by chance. So this is the part 1, indication of the reference latitude in the northern hemisphere and close to the Tropic of Cancer. And we'll be studying this from the 4th verse of the 21st chapter. This is the 4th verse, and the translation goes like this. When it passes, it is the sun, passes through the 5 signs headed by Rishabh, Taurus, the duration of the day increases, and then it gradually decreases by half an hour each month until day and night again become equal. Does anyone have any idea how can actually move this bar? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
What was your question, Prabhu?
Can you guide me? How can I, like make this bar invisible below, which says your screen sharing? Probably.
Which bar? The one at the top?
Right. Because it covers my screen. Any case, no problem. So each month until day and night again become equal in Libra.
Like this. Yeah, but they don't have him. He has problem, but it's first is fine. Yeah. Well, we can see okay on this end.
Fine. So the highlighted part below from the translation confirms the observer's location as being in the northern hemisphere. So that is when it passes through the 5 signs headed by Rishabh, the duration of day increases until Cancer. This only happens in the northern hemisphere. So this is how it actually clarifies it's in the northern hemisphere. Now, coming to the specific latitude, this is the total daylight time and time of the year as the number of hours in a day actually fluctuate. It depends upon the specific latitude. What the verse says is that the difference is 30 minutes for a month for the 3 months. So the cumulative difference is about 90 minutes in 3 months. So that's like about 1.5 hours. So if you see this green line and this blue line, it's supposed to lie something between here, that it's 20 degrees and 30-degree north latitude. Okay, so the thing is, the conclusion that we come is twofold. Of course, the conclusion is one, but it gives 2 results, and we'll be dwelling on that. So the minimum latitude indicated for 90 minutes is 22-degree north, considering the astronomical units, and 24.5-degree north, considering the civil sunrise. Now, what is the difference between an astronomical sunrise and civil sunrise? This is very peculiar to Indian measurements. I'm not sure if they use this in the Western world, but in the Panchanga calculations, the upper visibility of the sun is taken as astronomical sunrise, while the middle part of the sun is taken as a civil sunrise. So even the sunset is accordingly. So when the last upper limb sets, that's an astronomical sunset. And when the mid part of the sun sets, that is supposed to be a civil sunset. And that's why there's a slight difference between these two, but it makes a lot of difference in actually coming to a conclusion of what the latitude is. So, so I'm just taking, starting with 22° north, and these are the latitudes I've taken for places in India. So on the left-hand side, the black font is the astronomical unit, and the red part is the civil unit. So at 22° north, after 3 months, we have a difference of 89 minutes, 81 minutes on the civil side, 22.5 degrees, you can see that. So the average decrease in daylight hours per month is about 30.33 in civil units, and in astronomical units, and 27.67 per month in terms of civil units. So we move ahead to 23° north, and then 23.44° north of the Tropic of Cancer. And we have 31.67 for the Tropic of Cancer in terms of astronomical units, and 28.6 minutes in terms of the civil units. This is by way at Krishnanagar, Krishnanagar, that's near Mayapur, that's where actually the Tropic of Cancer passes. Also, when we come to 24° north, and conventionally, most of the Puranic texts take 24° north as the Tropic of Cancer. And this is also where the prime meridian at Ujjain is supposed to pass, because in Siddhantic text, the prime meridian is actually passing through Ujjain, which also lies on the Tropic of Cancer. So it's quite reasonable to appreciate the fact that these measurements are being taken at Ujjain at 24° north, through which the prime meridian passes. So we get about 89 minutes. So that's about 29.67 minutes, quite close if we are taking civil units. And the reason I'm taking civil units is because it's easier to measure for any layman, because the Bhagavatam is targeting, an audience which Shukdev Goswami himself says, Mandbhagya, so they are like less intelligent and less fortunate. Sumanda Mandamateyor, Mandabhagya Puttata. So it's meant for the general populace, and anyone actually, standing on the horizon can see when the sun is halfway up. And that makes more sense if he's actually mentioning the civil units. And if that is the case, then the latitude deduced will be 24° north. Now, this methodology also has been used by Sadaput Prabhu, but it comes at a different conclusion. And I requested Prishni Mataji to actually share the calculations that he had made, and she was kind enough to do that. And the difference lies in the following that we'll be seeing. Is he gets a result of approximately at 28.5° north, indicating Delhi. He felt probably it's because that's where the Bhagavatam is being spoken. But the fact is that there are two differences. He takes ghatika as 24 minutes, while Prabhupada clearly writes that ghatika is 13 minutes. And he's not actually being mistaken in doing that, because one of the commentators, Sri Bhagavad Prasad Acharya, also does the same thing. He takes ghatika as 24 minutes. But none of the acharyas actually clarify that aspect, except for Bhagavad Prasad Acharya. So when he's taking 25 minutes, it's nothing wrong, but it definitely does not agree with what Srila Prabhupada is giving. And so I actually, that's why I stuck with what Prabhupada was giving, and then continued the investigation further. And the second thing that he has done is, instead of taking it as a cumulative thing, that 90 minutes is a cumulative change over 3 months, he has assumed it as a rate of change per month. But this is not in agreement with what the commentaries of the Acharyas state, because they're very clear it's cumulative, it's gross, it is not rate of change. And it is not in agreement with astronomical observation, because the rate of change every month varies. So it doesn't agree with both of them. And that is why the difference is there in the readings that he's getting and what we have seen here. This is what he's actually summarized of what he has done. Another interesting point is there is a Shabd Praman to what also I'm suggesting here, because Shrajiv Goswami in his commentary to the 7th verse of the 21st chapter says, during the midday of the northern course, the sun is right over the head. Now, when the acharyas are commenting like this, you have to understand it will be either the starting of Uttarayan or the end of Uttarayan, that the sun is going to be overhead. And if the sun is overhead at the end of Uttarayan, it has to be 24 degrees north. That is where the Tropic of Cancer is. So in that sense, there's a Shaptapan to that also. There's a second method that we can use, and that is actually reducing the reference latitude in the northern hemisphere by what is known as the method of varying velocities for varying latitudes at different times of the years, and it relies on 3 verses. Verse number 7, 12, and 19. I have already taken this in the last presentation, so I will not be dwelling too much in detail about it, but just to give you an idea, the 12th verse mentions the sun speeds as 3400800 yojanas in a Murata, 2000 yojanas and 2 kroshas in a Shan in the verse number 19, and 9510000 in a day in verse number 7. So taking these 3 velocities and the distance between the Earth and the chariot wheel as 157 lakh yojanas, that is what Sridhar Swami is suggesting. Though Shukdev Goswami actually says 157.5. We get exactly that these velocities have been calculated for a latitude of 24.002 degrees, which is quite close to 24 degree north. I mean, you can't get closer than this. The only thing here is, and this is the thing. So in verse number 4, Srila Prabhupada is saying ghatika as 30 minutes. In verse number 10, he says Murata as 48 minutes, which makes ghatika, because Murata is twice ghatika, as 24 minutes. Very interesting, because in the verse 4, he's translating ghatika as half an hour. And here he writes half an hour and then puts in brackets actually 24 minutes. Quite interesting, but he does not change it in the verse number 4. And in the verse number, I think it's in the table number, the table for verse number 14 in the 11th chapter of the 3rd canto, he specifically mentions ghatika as 30 minutes and does not include the value of Murata there. So I was really intrigued. It was like, if verse number 4, he says half an hour and then he says 10. So I tried to make a bit of historical study on that also, but just to wrap up this aspect, just like when you have, if you're taking the Earth rotating, the value of the velocities goes on reducing. It is maximum at the equator and gets to 0 at the poles. If you take the reverse, that is the Earth is stationary and the sun is rotating, and you take a stick for measurement. That's the normal way. Even the Siddhanta text explains that how you measure the velocity of the sun with a gnomon or a stick, which you can see in this figure. So what you get is actually hyperboles. The hyperbole shadows traced on the Earth. And an hyperbole is nothing but a circle drawn on a sphere, which is projected on a plane. And if you see that, what happens interestingly, as you have an increasing circle, so the apparent local celestial sphere for a given latitude increases in radius in proportion to the inversely proportionate to the latitude, cos of the latitude of that place. And that is how you actually diffuse the velocities have been taken at 24 degrees north. I'm sorry if I'm rushing through this, because I've already taken this in the last presentation and I don't want to really be repetitive about it. This is just a diagrammatic presentation of what has been done. Okay, so in verse number 21.4, he's mentioning ghatika 30 minutes, 10 is 24 minutes, 21.12 is again 24 minutes, and 19, though he has not explicitly stated, he's saying Shana and Sharina I have taken from the table that he has, Srila Prabhupada has actually mentioned in the 14th verse of the 11th chapter. which assumes that ghatika is 30 minutes. So then we have 30 minutes, 24 minutes, 24 minutes, and 30 minutes in the same chapter itself. Very interesting. So I actually checked the Veda base for all the mentions that Srila Prabhupada was making upon ghatika. And this is the compilation, which I have done it in the table so that it's easier for you to understand. So 30 minutes he mentions in verse number 3.11.14 and Srimad-Bhagavatam verse number 5.21.4. Now, the historical date for this is very interesting. So he's doing this between 72 to 74 for the third canto. And the fifth canto he completes in 75. But at the same time, he's also writing Chaitanya Charitamrita, which he completed on 10th November 1974. So it's during the same time he's using the ghatika as 24 minutes and 30 minutes. So it's definitely nothing that has changed over a period of time for him. So it's in the same timeline that he is consciously making this choice of using 24 minutes and 30 minutes. So where do we go about? So fortunately, the only thing the Bhagavatam very specifically mentions is how you measure a ghatika. I think that's what even Krishna Bhajan Prabhu was interested in, and he mentioned that. And this is the verse which says, Dwadash Ardha Pal Unmanam Chaturvish Chaturungle Swarnamasik Chidram Yavat Prashta Jalaprutam. So this is the way he's saying, actually, the ghatika can be measured, that you have a copper pot with the hole at the bottom, the dimensions of which are given in this verse. So how do you calculate that? And I really thought it's going to be easy, but it was easy, but really fascinating. It took quite a lot of time. So Prabhupada gives the conversion factor for 6 pearl as 14 ounce. That's something that's a little debatable, nothing very erroneous, but Prabhupada is using different values there. And then the only contentious issue there was he does not define a prasth, for which I had to refer to the commentaries of the Acharya. And only Sri Vanshidhar gives a clue of how to calculate the prasth. He's not being exacting, but he refers to what is known as the Sharangadhar Samhita. He actually refers to Sharangadhar, who is the Sharangadhar Samhita. It's part of the Bhaishacya Shastras of Ayurveda, where it becomes necessary to calculate the solids and the liquids that you're measuring to make the drugs. And there it's a science that you have to know the volumes and the weights. So there he gives an idea and something really interesting. So this is the table that I've drawn from the commentaries of the various acharyas. And he says 2 shavas make a prasth, that is 16 palas. But if you see here, what I have used before is, sorry about that, is 1 prasth is 32 palas. I have specifically written there 16 into 2, because the table says 2 shavas make prasth, and 1 shava is equal to 8 palas, which makes 1 prasth equal to 16 palas. But then interestingly, and I was discussing this with Krishna Mataji, and she gave me a very contemporary example where we have ounces and fluid ounces. They're different, just like we have miles and nautical miles also. So here also, prasth in terms of solids is what it is, as mentioned in the table. But in terms of liquids, it becomes double. That's what the Shishrut Samhita mentions. That's what even the Manusmriti with the commentary of Medaditi mentions, translated by Gandhanath Jha. That's also actually mentioned in the Monia Williams dictionary. That in terms, when you're actually using prasth for a fluid or a liquid, it is 32 pulse. And a direct reference of that is in the Gauranga Purana, and this is the shlok, where it said the scholars say that measurement is of 2 types. If it is about liquids, it is twice that of solids. This is applicable to prastha. So, so the volume of the copper vessel then can be easily deducted. But all the acharyas and even Prabhupada very interestingly say that this is the volume of water that should enter before the vessel drowns. How do you calculate that? So I had to do some trial and error, but fortunately, I think Krishna was very merciful, not much. And the first vessel I selected somehow matched the criterias, and very little I had to do on it. And this is, I'm not going in detail of the calculations, but I'll share with you and you can go if anyone wants to. So we get the value of the prastha as about 2000, like 2.16 liters of water that it should actually enter before the vessel sinks. And the vessel should be approximately about 2.5 liters for the same. Now, the second thing I had to calculate was the hole. And for that, Prabhupada is actually mentioning that how you actually take a golden needle of a specific diameter and length. That is not directly given, but it has to be reduced by the weight of the copper that has been given. And luckily, Phala and Massa are related. So for the value of Phala that Prabhupada is given, I use it for converting to what a Massa will be. So this is how the value of the diameter is calculated at about 2.0166 mm. And it really matters till the third digit of what it should be if you really want a good reading. So this is the vessel that's ready. And I did a small experiment also. I mean, I shared the video also with Krishna Mataji. I can share with you if you have time left. But the average time to sink that it took was, and this is for about, like 50 readings I took across 4 locations with 2 observers. It took 30 minutes, 1 second, with the minimum time of 20 minutes, 37 seconds, and maximum time of 30 minutes, 30 seconds to sink with the standard deviation of 9.76 seconds. I deliberately made a second vessel to see if it was not a fluke. So it gave me a reading of 30 minutes, 18 seconds because of the tolerances involved. So these are the places that I actually took the readings at. But then what about 24 minutes? So in Sanskrit, this, because it's a kavya, Srimad-Bhagavatam is also a kavya, that there is a term called Lakshana, that is indicative. Now, because it's not directly, it's just saying the volume of water that should be contained in this vessel should be about 1 prastha, but it's not directly mentioning what will be the volume of the vessel. So this is trial and error. But the secondary meaning can be taken that by mentioning the volume of the liquid, it's saying that this is what the volume of the vessel should be. And if I take this as the volume of the vessel, this is what happens. I get 24 minutes, 10 seconds. So for the same shloka, the primary and the secondary readings, give me 30 minutes and 24 minutes, both the values of the ghatika that has been accepted by the acharyas. So is it a fluke? No, not really. I had to really scan through some Puranas to get a real Shabd Praman for this. And fortunately, in the Brahma-Vaivarta Purana, Krishna Janmakanda, verse number 52 and 53, it quotes exactly the same shloka. But the preceding shloka clarifies that the day is of 30 muhurtas, which makes ghatika as 24 minutes. What is happening is the Bhagavatam, because if you see the 11th chapter starts with the movement of the sun. And the Brahma-Vaivarta Purana is actually taking a lunar day. And what the Bhagavatam is doing is actually mentioning a solar day. So, so there is the difference. And why is it so? So we will come to that in a few moments. But of course, I found some other verses, some other shastras giving other ways you can actually make the vessel. I was not successful with the Brahma-Vaivarta Purana, which gives it in the Prakriti Kant properly because of insufficient data. I was not able to move, or I have missed something. I do not know. Vishnu Purana is still pending, but it's very close to the Bhagavat. Only that the units it says is the Magadha units. I have to really study what it is. Now the thing is that Prabhupada is using Phala as 14 ounces there. And it comes to about 12.4 grams for a tola. Other places that Prabhupada uses tola as 11.34 grams. That is CC Madhya Leela 4.182 and morning walk. And in CC Anta Leela, it's coming to about 10.93. The modern accepted value is about 11.67 grams. Probably, and I do not know if some of the editors, I think Jayadut Maharaj was the one actually who edited, that's what it shows, the third canto. if some way we can do a fidelity check of was 13 ounces taken as 14 ounces, I'm not sure. But that'll be much closer to the 11 grams. But it does not actually make a difference, because not for the experiment, because it does not affect the experiment in any substantial way, as the corresponding decrease in weight of the copper pot will also have a less volume to fill, because the volume will be less, and a smaller opening, as Phala and mass and Prastha are related to each other. So it does not make much difference. And actually I tried it. So I had vessels made of, measures that actually comply to the accepted values currently. And this is what I got. 24 minutes, so that's vessel number 4, 17 seconds, and vessel number 5, 30 minutes, 21 seconds. Not way off, but here I'm taking Yojana as 8 miles. Though other places I've reduced it to be about 7.9 miles, and I have to really be precise to figure out what exactly it is, 7.9 or 8. And that involves some machining and cost, which will take some time for me to figure out. Also, now, is this 30 minutes supported anywhere? Because I checked with what Bhaktivedanta Thakur had to say. I could probably Prabhupada, pick it up from there, because it's modern translation and it will clarify things. But at the first glance, no. Bhaktivedanta Thakur does not mention anything. But interestingly, our Sridhar Swami does. And all the acharyas follow suit of what Sridhar Swami has to say, except, and very interesting, except for Vallabhacharya and his followers, they differ. Interesting, and I remember, it reminded me of the pastime of Vallabha actually saying, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I have written something, which is better than what Sridhar Swami is saying. Here also you can see that actually, but this is what Sridhar Swami says. So he says, for the verse number 8, this is the translation: 6 or 7 nadikas make a prayer or yarn. Day and night are divided into 4 parts. When the day or night is short, then there are 6 nadikas in a prayer. When the day or night is long, then there are 7 nadikas in a prayer. This does not include the nadika at the 2 sandhyas, because it is impossible to list all the differences for each day of the year. The time is not fixed. This is indicated by the word va. So if you have 6 nadikas in the day, that a day is of 4 prayers, so you have 6 into 4. So if the day is shortest, that means the night is longest. So then the night will have 7 nadikas in the day. But you have to minus the 2 nadikas of sandhya, of the two sandhyas, 2 nadikas of the 2 sandhya, because the Vaishnav nadika, the Vaishnav sandhya consists of 2 nadikas. The Samartha sandhya consists of 3 nadikas. But because the Bhagavad is primarily a Vaishnav text, you take Sandhya as 2 nadikas. So that gives you 48 nadikas in 24 hours, which implies that 1 nadika is of 30 minutes for a sun-earth reference. This is what exactly Prabhupada is doing there. He's taking 30 minutes for a sun-earth reference, implying 24 minutes for a sun-earth-moon reference, as explained in the following slides. So if you take the zodiac circle and the movement of the sun westward for a 24-hour cycle, the zodiac can be divided into 24 sectors, that is 12 into 2, which gives you a 30-minute sector. Now, the sun, earth, moon reference system is nothing but the lunar day, as understood in the Bhagavad text itself. In fact, in the verses that are going to follow, and also in the 5th canto, which describes a civil day, a solar day, a lunar day, and a stellar day. So a lunar day is calculated as a 12-degree eastward movement of the moon in reference to the earth and the sun. That's a longitudinal movement of 12 degrees. So on a 24-hour cycle, 12 degree actually translates to 48 minutes, and half of that is 24 minutes, because 48 minutes makes a muhurta, and half of that, 60 degrees, is 24 minutes. So another interesting point, and why it should be done also. So copper in Sanskrit is also known as Arka, and so is the sun. And Urupati is the name of the moon, which means the Lord of water. So if for most of the things that I came across, the ghatika is always known to be measured by copper pot and water. They could have used any vessel and any liquid, but copper and water specifically, actually referring to the sun. The copper refers to the sun, and the water actually to the moon. That's the symbolic meaning also of taking copper and water. And that's confirmed by the Breath Jatika, chapter 2, verse 12, where it actually is an astrological text which say that the substances ascribed to the sun are copper and to the moon are gems. Gems are actually found in the ocean. That's how it's actually indicating to water also. Breath Samhita chapter 4 verse 2 says the rays of the sun falling and being reflected by the watery moon. Again, it clarifies that moon is made of water. So water is actually indicating moon and the copper is indicating sun. This is again from the Bhagavata Purana chapter 53 verse 56, 57, which says the disk of the sun and the moon are divine spheres of burning lustre. They resemble a circular pot. The moon planet is made up of condensed water, and the sun planet is made of the condensed fire element, again symbolized by copper and water. So this is what the standardization is of the Shastras, very specific. So the secondary meaning is confirmed, as I previously said, by this verse in the Bhagavata Purana, which says that 60 dandas make twice, make a day, which gives 24 minutes for a tithi. Tithi is again related to sun, moon, and earth. So while calculating a lunar day, a ghatika values of 24 minutes, and by a solar day, 30 minutes. What purpose does it serve? Why should it not be just one value? Well, interesting, because all this is related to astrology. And in astrology, now Murat in Sanskrit etymologically means a moment. For determining an auspicious timing for various rituals, the Murat has to be determined. Now, Murat actually, requires an access to a learned Brahmana. There is an easier way to do, and that's known as the Hora Shastra. Now, Hora Shastra is a part of Jyotish Shastra. Hor is written as Hora in Sanskrit. Hor is derived from Ahoratra, where the first and last words are removed. And the time duration of one day and one night is known as Ahoratra. In Vedic timekeeping, it is the duration from one sunrise to the next sunrise. Hence, Hor word has been derived after removing first and last alphabet of Ahoratra, Hora. It is interesting to know that in Spanish, Hora means time, and in all probability, the R in English has been derived from Hora, since Hor is equal to 60 minutes. There being 7 different Horas with a total of 24 hours in a day, Horas in a day. I'm not going into detail, but this is what actually Prabhupada was referring to when he was saying Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Why the sun and the moon? Because the Hora Shastra actually divides 24 hours days into 7 Horas, where each Hora has a presiding deity of Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars, and it cyclically moves. So when you take Sunday, the next Hora that comes is Monday. Anyway, I'm not going into details, but just to let you know this. So that's the application point. So once we know this, we can go to why Prabhupada is actually using 24 minutes at some time and 30 minutes. But that is how it categorically establishes by 2 methods that the value of the reference latitude where all these measurements are being made is 24 degree north, Tropic of Cancer, the prime meridian for all Siddhantic texts. It makes so much sense. And once you know that, you can get into rest of the calculations, which actually I did share a bit in the last presentation, how the motions of the sun can be deduced and how the Shishumar planetary system can be understood using the ecliptic coordinate system and the distances, the minimum and the maximum distances for the planets being deduced. Sometime others we can discuss this. But interestingly, also this gives us the value of the yojana as 8 miles. Because of the experiment itself. And the second way. The second way is because the third chapter of the third canto, the 11th chapter, again actually defines the Trasharenu and the Parmanu. And the Trasharenu has been told to say the smallest particle actually that can be visible by a human being. And the calculations are actually in the next slide. I will be sharing the presentation so one can go through the calculations. So it gives a value of about 63 microns for a Trasharenu. The modern estimates for the smallest particles visible to a human eye are between 58 to 72 microns, which is amazingly close. It's just bang in the middle, 65 microns. Now, if you deduce Paramanu from this, it comes to about 10 microns. Very interesting, because 10 microns is the smallest size visible to some insects and birds. Why I'm taking this is I couldn't find the shloka immediately, but it's there, I know, somewhere, which actually also gives an analogy of how the akshara, the different sound vibrations are calculated. And it mentions what is the shortest sound vibration that is audible. That's how the time is calculated according to the sound. So it won't be completely out of context if it's actually talking of what is visible to the senses. That's how the Parmanu and the Trashrenu. It's just a conjecture. I have not actually researched too much into this aspect, but I'm just throwing a thought.